This is Retirement Keys with Anthony Congemi from Crescent City Retirement Group. When a part of your financial strategy is out of tune, your long-term goals, your retirement savings, and your legacy can all suffer. With many years of experience in the financial industry, Anthony provides his clients and prospects with the information they need regarding Social Security, retirement income planning, wealth management, and much more. Listen in as we address your financial concerns and provide helpful solutions to put you on the path to achieving your retirement goals. And now, here is Retirement Keys with your host, Anthony Congemi.
All right, welcome to another show of Retirement Keys. I'm Anthony Congemi. Thank you so much for joining us here this morning. We have our fabulous co-host, as we do every Sunday morning, Tony Shore. Tony will be joining us, and we will be talking about estate planning and mistakes, estate planning mistakes and how to avoid them. We have Tony here, as I said, and Tony, thank you so much for being with us this morning.
Anthony, thank you for having me on your show. This is really nice. I love being on your show, and you have some great advice each week for our listeners out there. And we began this subject on our last episode, and it's so important. We have so much more to talk about. A lot of people make mistakes regarding planning out their futures, don't they? Their financial futures, their retirement income, and of course their estate planning, which is a huge part of it all. And to get it planned out properly, it just takes a weight off. I know it did when I sat down with my mom and dad, an estate planning attorney and their financial advisor back up in Minnesota where my parents live. But I know this is something you help out people with, making sure, hey, you got to work with an estate planning attorney and you got to get it planned out. No matter how little or how much you have, there are some mistakes. I mean, and we've talked about a couple in our last show that we recorded, failing to plan. That's a big one. Not planning. That's the biggest mistake people make. They put it off or don't have a plan. And you talked a lot about that and not discussing it with family and friends. That's a big one. So I'm looking forward to more of this and talking about some more things, mistakes to avoid out there. But Anthony, before we get into that, I have to ask you, how have you been? Are you trying to stay cool?
Yeah, well, believe it or not, and maybe it's just my imagination, but I get up in the morning, last couple of mornings, and it seems like it's been a little cooler,
Yeah, fall might be on the way.
Or maybe it's just, in my head. But I don't know. I don't think. I think that we have been getting a little gust, a little breeze here and there. And I tell you, we're just all very hopeful. As you know, it's very hot down here in the South.
Yeah.
And it's been, extremely hot through August. I mean, we've had record temperatures, 105, and so we're really looking forward to the fall. What about you up there in Minnesota, Tony? How's the weather?
Actually, it is in the 90s and humid today with a heat index of about 105. It's extremely hot. This time of August, end of August, is really one of the hottest times usually in Minnesota because the humidity hits. Now, last week we had cool, crisp, beautiful weather with hot highs in the upper 70s, lows in the upper 50s, which is perfect.
Oh, wow.
But now we're in another heat wave with a lot of humidity. And as you know, being from New Orleans, the humidity combined with the heat is what's tough.
Yeah, it really is tough that humidity does get to you. Now, Of course, you will be making a trip down here.
Oh, yeah.
Second week of October.
Yes, and October 11th.
October 11th, and that's going to really be, some nice fall weather that you're going to experience.
I'm looking forward to spending some time down there with you and the staff and hanging out. And I love, I love New Orleans. I love it so much. And I always look forward each year to my visits with you and your family and everybody there. It's great to see everyone. So I'm excited about that. Speaking of family, Anthony, my dad's 81st birthday was last weekend, and we celebrated his 81st birthday. And so that was fun. That's what we did last weekend. Are you keeping busy?
Yeah, absolutely, Tony. Between the kids and of course, our firm, we
Yeah,
stay pretty active with our clients and client planning, and things are starting to, the summer months. People are doing a lot of traveling, but now a lot of our client reviews are starting back up again, and so yeah, absolutely.
yep,
It's been busy times, and things change, Tony. We're now in the throes of getting ready to start on this whole Medicare enrollment period on October
sure.
the 15th, and people are trying to get organized with that. When you're retired, you would think that, well, we've got everything set up and, there's no real adjustments that need to be made. And that's really, not the case, Tony. Across the board, whether we're talking about estate planning like we're talking about today, or healthcare planning, or taxes, investments, income, all of these pieces of a retirement plan have to be maintained. They really do. And so when we talk to clients about retirement planning, or for our listeners who are talking to retirement planning firms, just recognize that that firm really is going to be a partner, your retirement partner throughout your retirement. At least they should be acting as in that capacity. But it really is an ongoing thing, Tony. There's always tweaks and adjustments, frankly, that have to be made from year to year.
Yeah. Yeah, there are. And that's a really good point. So you definitely want to meet with a financial advisor at least every year. And then during Medicare open enrollment, if you're in retirement, you want to review what you have at least once a year, thoroughly review it and have an expert look at it, have a specialist, a Medicare specialist look at it.
Correct.
And I know that's what you do there. You have that in your office. You look at where they're at. Maybe they have an advantage plan. Maybe they have a supplemental. Maybe they're just on straight Medicare, but there are costs involved. Always people think, oh, I'm on Medicare, I won't have any costs. There's still premiums, there's still
Oh,
deductibles, there's
yeah.
still copays. So you want to make sure you're minimizing the burden and making sure you have the coverage you're going to need. So that's huge. And that leads us right into our estate planning mistakes list. I think where we left off, I know that one of them on there is not forgetting about one mistake people make is forgetting about a power of attorney or healthcare directives, right?
Absolutely, Tony. And to the point of Medicare and healthcare, things change with people's healthcare needs. I mean,
Yeah.
prescription drugs change, and in this case, we're talking about estate planning and healthcare directives. What I can tell you is, as it relates to power of attorney, whether it's these durable power of attorneys handle medical and financial directives, it's a critical part of your estate planning. I mean, if you find yourself in a situation, let's say in some type of healthcare crisis, where you need some help from a spouse, or a partner, or a friend, or maybe one of your kids have to make decisions for you, whether it be a financial decision or a healthcare decision. If they don't have your medical power of attorney that handles, again, these power of attorneys that handle not only the financial but the medical directives, I mean, really, their hands are tied. So having that power of attorney with that medical directive is so important, Tony, as it relates to an estate planning document. I mean, I was in a client's home about a year ago, and they had been married for over 60 years. So
Hmm.
yeah, a little over 60 years. And there was an account they were trying to make sure that, and this was a pretty large retirement account that was in her name, and she wasn't doing well, right? So she was in bed, and the hospice was there. And what the family was trying to do was just simply confirm the beneficiary designations on this particular account. So we had to call the custodian to try to get that information and make sure that the beneficiaries was set the way they wanted them to, because some beneficiaries had passed away early on. They wanted to make sure it was updated. It's a normal request. Well, none of them had power of attorney for the client, and the company that held the account wouldn't provide us the information. Um, so I guess what I'm saying, Tony, is you could be married for 60 years, and if you try to call a bank or an insurance company or any type of brokerage firm and try to get information from even your spouse of 60 years, if they don't have your power of attorney on file, they won't talk to you.
Hmm.
And so it really, this stuff goes hand in hand. In this particular case, she passed away and the beneficiaries were not set up the way that they wanted them to be. This was an old account that she had years and years and years ago. And when in the throes of all this, they uncovered it, they unearthed this account. It was a large life insurance policy. And at the end of the day, Tony, a lot of the problems could have been avoided by just making sure the beneficiary form was set up correctly. But we couldn't get what we needed because nobody in the family had her power of attorney, including her husband of 60 years of marriage. They would have had to gone through what the lawyer said was we would have had to gone through some type of interdiction process. I mean, it was a mess. Okay. Let's just go on a limb and say, as far as estate planning documents go, a durable health power of attorney that covers medical and financial directives is a very important estate planning document.
Yeah, it's huge, obviously. And I think you have to have that. You need to make sure that you have that durable power of attorney, as you mentioned. That's a big one. So what's another estate planning mistake we should avoid then?
Well, the next one on the list, Tony, is forgetting about final arrangements. So here again, Tony, when then the final arrangements, somebody, passes away, they want to make sure that the beneficiaries, the heirs, spouse, kids, even grandkids, have a place that's all, final arrangements that are set up. A lot of things have to go into preparing for final arrangements. I mean, what does the person want? Do they want what type of funeral, or whether it be a cremation, or what location, and do they have a plot? What about a marker? And all sorts of things, Tony, have to go into preparing for someone's final arrangements. And as it relates to estate planning, if your final arrangements are already taken care of, in other words, all of your wishes are all in place through memorial guides and those types of things, where you can have all of this already in place, Tony, and also the funds to fund the final arrangements, whether it be a prepaid situation or their final expense policies that are portable. We like the final arrangement or the final expense policies because they're portable. You can use them at any funeral home and the like. So, but a final expense arrangements and making sure that all of your wishes are known. So it's not something that all of a sudden, if someone passes away, the family's all of a sudden getting together and saying, well, this one wants this or that one wants that, or, and then all of a sudden, and there's usually at that time too, emotions, can be running high. And so really what estate planning is in general is just trying to keep harmony and trying to keep peace in the family. And certainly having your final expenses and final arrangements taken care of is really a great step, in that direction.
Yeah, and I really appreciate my parents for lining up their, they've already paid for their grave sites and funerals and have that all done ahead of time. And that's the best thing you can do for your loved ones, is have that planned out ahead of time. And work with a funeral home, work with your financial advisor, make sure everybody's on the same page in your family. I think communication is a big part of this, right? And a lot of people, the regrets are, they leave their family in a bad situation because they didn't communicate about final arrangements or what they wanted, right?
Absolutely, Tony. When I think back of all of the clients that we've had over the years who have passed away, it's a pretty consistent theme that the clients that had all of their estate planning in order, they had all of their arrangements in order, they had their beneficiaries in order, they had a properly drafted will, they were very specific about how they wanted things to go, seemed to have just worked out so smoothly with the family. And then the appreciation of the family to know that, hey, everything's been taken care of, versus folks that have passed away that didn't take the time or the steps to get in their estate planning in order. And invariably, Tony, it's a mess. I mean, then you've got squabbling and, well, that's not what mom wanted, or I was supposed to get this, or that's not what we thought. And all of a sudden there's bickering going on within the family. And so, that's why when we talk about the 5, keys to a stress-free retirement, estate and legacy planning is one of those keys. And it's not something that we have to dwell on, or anything like that. We just put the plan in place. And then, yes, we do monitor it because sometimes, a new child is born, or somebody might pass away, or somebody gets married, or somebody gets divorced. There's some changes within the family. So back to what we said earlier, things have to be maintained, depending on the dynamics of the family. But nevertheless, it's very easy to maintain. There's not much to it. Maybe we have to update some beneficiary forms, or maybe update something in the will. But those are just maintenance items along the way.
Sure.
But not having an estate plan, not having a properly drafted will, not having your beneficiaries in order, not having a power of attorney, it really just not having your final arrangements taken care of. It really ultimately just lands on the shoulders of the family, and it can end up being a problem versus just getting it all out of the way and taking care of it on the front end. Yeah, why not?
Yeah, get it done. In fact, let's take a moment here to let our listeners out there know, Anthony, how they can get a hold of you to set up that no charge, no obligation consultation so they can sit down with you and talk about it. You can recommend a quality estate planning attorney. I know your office works alongside attorneys that you recommend that have helped your clients. How can our listeners do that or get questions answered?
Absolutely. So just reach out to us at our phone number here at the office in Metairie is 504-828-2171, or you can go right online at crescentcityretirement.com. We have a link right there on the website where we can schedule a 15-minute retirement resource call, and we can talk through all or any of your questions that you may have as it relates to your estate planning or any other aspect of your retirement. So we do have a resource call that we can schedule. Again, our office number is 504-828-2171, or simply go online at crescentcityretirement.com and schedule a call there.
All right. Sounds great. Thank you, Anthony. And let's keep rolling with our show. We're talking about estate planning mistakes to avoid, and you've gone over quite a few. What's another one that you want to touch on today?
Well, Tony, number 8 on the list says not thinking about your children's future. And so what I can say here is, I guess it depends on the situation.
Sure.
As an example, if there are kids that are minors, we'll see, or grandkids that we're trying to set up some type of support, whether it be for education or some type of education planning, or could be any housing or any type of support for the future. Certainly estate planning is involved there. There's different types of trusts that can be set up for kids and grandkids. You might want to carve assets out, let's say for the grandkids. You want to make sure that they have money for college, or they have money for a down payment on a home later on. But you have specific instructions, like, in other words, you want to make sure that the funds are used a certain way and at a certain time. Well, of course, there are trusts that are set up inside of the will that the lawyer can talk through and make sure that things are set up properly as it relates to kids and grandkids. Sometimes I've seen people have like a special needs type of situation where one of the kids might have a special needs health issue, a Down syndrome or something like that, where they can't inherit money directly, but then the lawyer can set up what's called a special needs trust, where monies can go into the trust for a particular child's support. So it depends on the situation. Sometimes there's a situation where one of the kids, let's say, is very responsible with money, but then they might point out another that isn't so responsible, and they'll want to set up, and they call them spendthrift type trusts, where you're setting up some structure, maybe some income for that child to have through their lifetime. So it depends on the situation. I'm just bringing out a couple of, situations that could be out there. Now, if it's very straightforward, all my kids are very responsible, nobody has any issues per se, and they can inherit directly without any type of additional instruction, then typically a trust is not necessary. But if there are some specifics where we want to try to control how they get the funds, when they get the funds, and for what reason, then a trust certainly is the tool. I'll give you one that's not unrelated to all of that, but it just came up about a week ago. I have a client who has a camp, and they still call them camps, these camps in Grand Isle, but they certainly don't look like the camps I grew up with. I mean, they're beautiful, they're like homes. But anyway, They have this camp in Grand Isle, and but they don't want the camp to be sold. They want the camp to remain in the family. So this is an estate planning situation where my clients who own the camp, they want the camp to remain in the family for future generations to enjoy the camp, right? So they don't want the camp sold. So they're setting the camp up in a trust, right? And then the trust has instructions, and everybody has use of the camp. They just can't sell the camp. They have to maintain obviously maintain the camp. So I guess what I'm saying with all of this is estate planning is really, there's really no right or wrong. It's really what you want to happen, how you want things to go. And then you just have to make sure that the will, the beneficiary designations, the trust, if need be, are all coordinated. And it's really important. And at the end of the day, if there's squabbling going on, or if things aren't clear, the only people that win in all of that are the lawyers.
Yeah.
That's the only people that win. And then, of course, if or undue taxes that are being paid that could have been avoided. So really, an efficient estate plan, people have worked hard, Tony, all of their lives to build and grow and save and invest and build this estate that they're going to enjoy and that are enjoying in retirement. But ultimately, it's going to pass on to the next generation. And you just want to make sure that it passes on in the most tax efficient way and in the manner that you want it to go.
Great show today, but we're almost out of time. So before we go, let our listeners know one more time how they can get a hold of you and set up that no charge, no obligation consultation.
Absolutely. So thank you so much for joining us. We hope you got some good information here today as it relates to estate and legacy planning. Again, log on to our website, crescentcityretirement.com. All of our shows are archived there. You can reach out to us. You can schedule a call on the Calendly link, which is right there on the website. Schedule a call with me or just call directly, 504-828-2171. Let's talk about your retirement planning. This estate planning show that we did, we have really an excellent document that lays out all of these points that Tony and I have been talking through over the last couple of weeks. We want to send you that document. It lays it all out beautifully. Just call us at 504-828-2171 or request a copy online at crescentcityretirement.com. And again, thank you so much for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you again next week.
All right, and that does it for today's episode of Retirement Keys with our host, Anthony Congemi. Thank you for listening to Retirement Keys. Don't pay too much for taxes or retire without a sound income plan. For more information, please contact Anthony Congemi at Crescent City Retirement Group. Call 504-828-2171 or visit the website at crescentcityretirement.com.
All matters discussed during the show are for informational purposes only. Each individual situation may vary, and the opinions expressed here may not apply to everyone. Materials presented are believed to be from reliable sources, and no representations can be made as to its accuracy. All ideas and information should be discussed in detail with one of our qualified representatives prior to implementation. We are not affiliated with or endorsed by the Social Security Administration, the Federal Medicare Program, or any other government agency. Calling this number will direct you to a licensed sales agent.